Welcome to the Evangelistic House of God podcast.
Unscripted discussions on social issues from a Christian's perspective.
Hello and welcome to the Evangelistic House of God EHOG podcast, where we talk about social issues from a Christian's perspective. I am Pastor Rod Harris, and this is Pastor Steve Harris. How you doing, Steve?
Good.
We got some sunshine today in the middle of December, at the beginning of December.
Yeah,
actually, we need that sunshine because we just came through a very difficult period in life where our brother passed away last week.
Yeah.
And right after the holidays, he's been married to my sister for over 36 years, and which means that I have known him for all of my life.
Just about.
And so it was a very difficult time for us. So our family is kind of getting over some grieving, and some of us are still in that mourning phase. But we had a beautiful service on Saturday, a beautiful repast, and it really brought a lot of peace, I think, to the family to see all those many people together and loving each other and doing the things that family typically does at a time like this.
A wonderful welcome at home.
It was. And he was a very strong man, spiritual man, very loved father.
Yes, he is.
And brother, and we're going to miss him. He left us a lot, though.
He did.
In terms of his legacy. And, speaking of him and thinking about him this morning, we decided to do this show on forgiveness. It's typically at this time when you've lost someone or you separated from someone for an extended period of time that you start to think about what you didn't do, what you could have done, and how you could have made that life or situation better. At least that's where I typically go.
Yes.
I started thinking about, did I love him in the way I should? Did he know how much I loved him when he passed? Was our relationship everything it should have been? Did I have any past grudges or ill feelings? That forgiveness is such a big component, and I think it's a real big part of the healing after you lost someone as well. And it typically starts with that self-reflection.
Yeah, I think so. I think you almost always have to start with you and see where you at. Typically you don't want to wait until someone has passed to do a review, but it's something, if we can take it from a funeral aspect when somebody's gone to just doing it daily.
Yes.
Giving yourself a self-check daily to see where you stand as far as your relationship with other people. It would we wouldn't have to go to wait to a finality type of situation to find out whether or not we were in good standing.
Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of what they say, give them their flowers now.
Yes.
Right. One of our sisters passed about 6-7 years ago. Yeah. She passed of cancer, and I found myself in a state of review constantly while she was in the hospital going through her battles with sepsis, and I constantly kept asking myself, did you do everything you could? Did she know how much you loved her? Did she feel your love? Did she feel your time and attention? Yeah. Was there something else I could have done? And just having to ask that question put me in a very awkward position as she was passing away. And, he had that one-on-one talk with the person. And of course, when they're on their deathbed, all they could think about is being saved and being at peace.
Yeah.
But it's after that really got me into the daily reflective mode, to be honest. And so about 5 or 6 years ago when she passed away, I kept thinking to myself, are there people in my life that I should be closer to? Are there people in our families, in our churches, relationships? When I have these interactions or dealings with other folks, do they know that I am genuinely their brother, and do they feel that from me?
Yeah.
And so I kind of took that as a personal challenge to make sure that I don't hold any grudges against people. It's kind of hard for me to hold grudges anyway.
Yeah, I understand.
I move kind of quickly through stuff, and I kind of speak my mind quickly. So.
Yeah. Well, we got a lot on our plates for that, and we have to deal with a lot of people, especially dealing from a mentality of a pastor.
Right.
I understand what you're saying. For me, it's a little different. I guess because of the way we were brought up, it kind of gives you you're going to church, you're listening to all of these lessons on forgiveness. You see forgiveness preached 1,000 different type of ways, and you all, for me, I'm always looking to see how I could make that better. or you want to give yourself a good review. And what I do, part of my daily routine, is that in the evening I review my day, and see who I talk to, how I talk to them, what should I have kept to myself, what should I have said that I did keep to myself, that kind of thing. And then, I ask for forgiveness before I go to bed, because, you never know whether you're going to wake up or not.
Exactly.
Because tomorrow, as we just found, it's not promised to anybody. He was a healthy man. But at the same time, things happen, and you always have to be ready. And it's just yet another warning to the living that we have to make sure that we have ourselves together.
Yeah.
I hear a lot and I see a lot, even beyond just our daily interactions. But even watching television, you see people, they so hurt with grief, they so struck with grief that they can't seem to forgive people who have done them wrong.
Right.
And it could be in a relationship where the husband is, the wife is estranged from the husband, or more commonly when someone has been killed or murdered, and say for instance a drunk driving case or something like that, and you see these people and they put this curse out on them when they're in court, and the person ends up getting life or some serious punishment time, and then the person that's hurting and grieving yells out, I hope you burn in hell. I hope that you never have comfort. I hope that you never this and never that. And it's like, hey, wait a minute. I understand it hurts, and it's a painful process, and it was something that shouldn't have happened. But you can't carry that burden along. Now you have assigned yourself this burden,
right?
Of hurt and basically cursing yourself.
In that same situation, I've known people that they go to the parole hearings.
For
years.
Yeah.
I know a particular case where this family put it in the will that their children will go to the parole hearings and fight against this person's release for something that happened 40-some years ago.
Yeah, that's
it's like you are constantly reliving that pain over and over and over again. Then you're gonna force it into your next generations. It's kind of
that's
wow.
That to me, that's that's a form of insanity.
Yeah,
and that, I think, that's going into what it does to you to hold these type of grudges. And I know that was probably one of the subjects that we was going to pop into, but I thought it was appropriate to go ahead and talk about it now. But what we call grudges are sores, right?
Yeah. And
God has kind of given it to us that sores, from a mental aspect and a spiritual aspect, are wounds that have not healed. So if you look at a natural wound and it's just open and it's just sitting there and it's festering and it's hurting, but there's no treatment, there's no ointment, there is no bandages that have been applied to this wound to start the healing process. Okay. And that's how a lot of us, we go through life holding these open sores, and so it's always open and it's bleeding and it's pussing and it's nasty, and it never heals. But we know that when a sore doesn't heal, it affects the rest of the body.
Exactly. I was about to say, it typically affects the rest of the body, and infection sets in, and next thing you know, you got your real problem. And typically it infects the heart in this case. And so, forgiveness is one of those things where you hear people say all of the time, you should forgive, you should forgive. I've heard people say they have their own versions of forgiveness. Well, I forgive you, but I'm never going to forget what you did to me. And let's just be clear, that's not forgiveness.
No, it's not. It's not.
So we're going to get into some of those. So let's talk about, what does forgiveness really look like?
When I look at forgiveness, I think of the model that Jesus Christ put out for us. And without getting too preachy, but going back to the Old Testament, where there was no forgiveness, where you were given a set of laws, and there was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of laws, and that if you broke one, it was like that was it. You couldn't, there was no true forgiveness. Right. because, even the sacrifices that you made came from the earth, which was born in sin, and so there was no real forgiveness. But when Jesus came, he wiped the slate clean for those who trust and believe in him and called on him, right?
That's right.
And accepted him as their Lord and Savior. So looking at it from that aspect, and then going into some of the teachings that Jesus said, where the disciple asked, well, how many times should they forgive? And he said 70 times 7, which basically is saying just continue to forgive.
Right.
Forgive is wiping the slate clean. There is no transgression that was done against me once I have forgiven you. You are new. You are clean. When God, and he saved us and he gave us the power of the Holy Ghost, he wiped all of our sins away. He did not count anything against us that we did before we took on this new body, this new creature. The old man was buried, which represented sin, and he's dead. And now this new creature has come up that doesn't have any and shouldn't have any of the characteristics of the old sinful creature. It's a brand new person with a brand new start. And that's how forgiveness should look as well.
I tried to help somebody understand what forgiveness was about and how to really forgive, because they used that phrase to me. They said, well, I don't understand if somebody stole out of my purse. Am I stupid to put my purse back in? Am I wrong to not ever want them to be around my purse again? And I said, no, you wrong to hold it against them.
Right.
If they came to you and talked to you and asked you to forgive them, they fessed up to it and told you they stole out your purse, gave you your money back, or if they didn't even give you money back, if you found out and you checked them and they agreed and admitted to it and asked you to forgive them, it should be over with. I said, you're stupid for leaving your purse out in front of anybody.
That's the lesson to be learned.
Right. You didn't learn the lesson. The lesson is don't leave your purse out in front of anybody, because that can happen.
Absolutely.
And if your money is precious to you, then don't take a chance on it getting stolen from you.
That's right.
But to truly forgive somebody is meaning that you want to be forgiven. You want to forgive somebody the way you want to be forgiven.
That's absolutely right.
So when you go to God and you ask him for something and you need something and you're on your knees praying for this deliverance or this miracle to happen for you, you don't want him to pull back 1977 and say, yeah, remember that day you was, in the club when you was on the corner.
Right.
And it's like, I don't want that to be held against me.
Right.
I want to be living each day refreshed and anew.
That's
and
right.
I want my Father to see me that way. And so I would expect other people would want us to be seen that way as well. And so the only way we can truly forgive somebody is to forgive people the way that you would love to be forgiven.
That's right.
Nobody wants to hold that over your head.
Yeah, I think another thing that we, as when we're hurting, that we take that we don't take into consideration is that people change over time, and we always want people to recognize changes in us, maturity in us, learning. I'm not the same person.
That guy no more.
Don't hold that against me. Remember, I used to be
past.
that, but I'm that was a long time ago, and I'm this totally different person. But that same guy or lady won't look at the next guy and give them the benefit of the doubt.
Because they remember when they did this to them.
Yeah.
And when you ate the last sandwich, and when you ate my chips and they wasn't yours, and
Right. So everybody can grow up except them.
Right. But and if you really think about anything that you beefing with somebody on, I guarantee you that it is so simple and so silly that it should never have been an issue in the first place.
Yeah, that's most
99% of all issues in life are based on bad communication.
Yeah.
And if people were just to open up and have the dialogue, then there would be no reason to hold these grudges and create these sores that fester into our hearts and cause this great infection and pain that we were talking about.
That's right.
So when we talk about what forgiveness looks like and a lifelong of grudges, so how do you truly forgive? So if I had wronged you and I recognize I wronged you, how would I even approach you to talk about it? I mean, what would you expect a person to do? How does this interaction look? How do people actually get to forgive one another?
So if I was done wrong by you or somebody else, right? The first thing I have to do is understand or to forgive it for me. I have to let it go. Because you may not come back and ask for forgiveness.
I might not know I wronged you.
You may not have known.
I might just be the way I operate.
Absolutely. So And yeah, so you moved on and you went on, but I was the one that took offense to it.
Right.
And so it became an issue for me. So I have to reconcile that first within me and make sure that I'm okay going forward, right? And then I pray for God to show me the understanding if I was wrong in the situation so that I can see the beam that's in my own eye, right? As the scriptures say, before I could even approach. So for me, I would start with myself. We started off this whole session with a self-check and find out where it is that I'm at. And if God is showing me that it's totally on that person, then I first got to forgive them for what they did.
Yeah, and so is there something wrong with me actually coming to you if you offended me and saying, when you did that, it made me feel like this, and I took offense to it.
Absolutely.
And I want you to understand how I feel when you do that. And we shouldn't have to go through that again.
I agree. I think that's a great way.
And I think that, that is a mature, a very mature response and a very mature way of dealing with some personal issues is really just opening up the dialogue. And the way I did that with him is I came to him and told him how it made me feel. That's nothing that he can argue with me about. So I came to him directly and I said, when you did this, it made me feel like this. That's not a point of contention. That's not a point of argument. Right. He can't tell me how I feel.
Or how you should feel.
Or how I should feel.
Or how you should have took it.
Right. His response needs to be in reaction to what I just said. He should be doing that self-check and evaluating how I made him feel or how he made me feel, and then trying to correct that action. Right. And so typically it's, well, I didn't know I made you feel like that. I didn't know it affected you this way. Or, I was trying to be ugly. I wanted to hurt you. I was mad at you. I tried to spite you. I mean, whatever the kid's situation is, it's about growing up and owning up to it.
Right.
And I just think that the forgiveness, my whole point for bringing this up is that forgiveness is two ways. So it's not just a person that has been wrong that's forgiving somebody for wronging them. The person that actually committed the offense or that was, found to be in the wrong needs to also come together and kind of create this area of forgiveness between that person that they wronged. And I don't think that there's nothing wrong with actually, confronting it. I think the sooner we confront it, the better off we are.
I agree. I think that one other thing that you probably left out is that it takes courage to be able to do that. And I know some people would rather not approach somebody.
Yeah, but we talking about being mature in the first place.
I understand that. But I'm saying the natural way that people do is it's easier for them in some regards to just go away and talk about them to somebody else. But then there's no resolution.
There's no resolution that didn't resolve
and the sore is still remaining, right?
Yeah. And the other thing is, when you open up how somebody offended you to somebody else, now you've not only got your sore open, but you've actually passed that infection on to somebody else.
That's right. That's a good point.
As I tell other people what he did to me, I might be tainting their perception of him and making them not like him or have an ought against him as well when they had nothing to do with the situation.
Right.
And so at that point, I have become a divisor and a trouble starter, a busybody, and, to keep ourselves free from things like that, is really best to just grow up, be adult about it, and go deal with it. And if you don't have the courage to deal with the person face to face, at least do it in your closet before God and ask for forgiveness, ask to be forgiven, ask them to forgive you, ask him to forgive you, and at least forgive yourself so that you can start to move on in life.
But if you still feel like you still have feelings of resentment and anger, then you're not done with that process.
You're not.
You have not forgiven them because there's still lingering issues that still need to be resolved.
Every time you think of that person, you're gonna say, "Well, they did something, but I ain't gonna say it this time." Then you ain't let it go. I would, but I ain't gonna say it. Right. Yeah, you just said it.
Yeah, and I also think that sometimes when you had alluded to it earlier, that people will say things like, well, I have forgiveness of my own, some kind of own brand of their own brand of forgiveness. But really, all that is that's some elements of forgiveness and a whole lot of self and flesh that you have combined together so that you don't have to suffer Or you know what I'm saying? So that you don't have to let anything go.
Right. But that ain't forgiveness.
No, it's not. It's not.
not.
But I just wanted to bring that out because I think it's important that people recognize what that is. There is no compromise. Either you have true forgiveness and true love for people, or you don't.
That's right.
Any other thing, any other kind of modification is just something to appease yourself.
Yeah. Man, this is a pretty good topic, and I hope that you watching this are not waiting for somebody to pass away so you can do the self-reflection.
Oh, please. No.
I would hope that this was something that you could start doing today. As you're listening to this, you should be thinking about, situations that you were in, conversations that you've had, people that you may have offended or people that may have offended you. And then you'll take those next steps to actually cure that infection and make sure that is not a poor sore or a grudge.
That's right.
Because nobody wants to die with that, and you don't want nobody else to die with it on them.
Yeah, so I think that, from a proactive approach, just like we talked about at the beginning of the show, you got to continue to do self-checks every day and practice spreading love and understanding what love is and having that great relationship with people. And being able to and really practice articulating yourself to other people so that you can feel free to be able to approach them when you have controversial subjects where you feel like you were offended or that somebody did a wrong to you. It's like, I have so much love for you that I want to let you know so that you don't hurt anybody else, or so that we can move past this and go on and do greater things together. And sometimes it's just about framing a situation so that it makes more sense for you so that you can go ahead and actively pursue, reconciliation.
Yeah, and a lot of times you'd be surprised at the people that do not know that they've offended you.
Yeah,
I have seen people that were so offended and they came to me as a pastor confiding in me and trying to let me know that they had an ought against somebody else. And I'm like, well, did you talk to that person? That's always the first place I go.
Right.
Did you talk to your brother? Did you talk to your sister? Do they know that you got a problem with them? And what did they say when you told them? Well, of course, that part of the process hadn't come, or they wouldn't be sitting in front of me at my desk, right?
Right.
And you'll find that in most of those cases, if you sit those two people down and just have a dialogue and just have them to do a dialogue, most of the time the situation was so, above the person's head. They never even knew that they had offended you. They never knew that you were offended. They didn't even understand where you were coming from.
Yeah.
And they're trying to figure it out. They're like, well, I didn't know why you stopped speaking to me. And I have seen that more times than not. It is typically something so small and so stupid that we blow it out of proportion and make it into a big thing it shouldn't be.
That's right. Yeah, but one of the last, I guess, I don't know how much time we have left. I imagine not much. But one of the things that I think is important for us to always remember is that when we're asking God for forgiveness, those are things we need to remember when it comes to other people. We do some horrible things. We do some outrageous stuff that people may never come back to us and say, hey, you did this, but we know, our hearts know that we didn't do it the right way. And so we need to really understand that when we go to God and we ask Him for forgiveness for doing some crazy stuff, He's expecting us to have that same type of forgiveness toward each other.
That's true. That's true. Good way to end this off. So I'm hoping that you're enjoying this conversation. This should be dinner table conversation that you should be having tonight with your family. Have this conversation, talk it out with your wife, talk it out with your husband, with your kids, with your family members. Make sure that people in your life know that you love them. Life is too short and too precious to be petty. Think about that and forgive somebody today. We love you. Glad to see you again. Check us out. Hit the subscribe button. Come back every week. We'll be back. Talk to you next time.
All right.